Hello! I am stood in Wallsend, just in front of Hadrian's Wall. Now, in fact, that is a reconstruction of the wall. Just in front of it, you can see on the grass there, is actually the original base of Hadrian's Wall. And I'm here because people often describe this section of the wall as the most boring part of Hadrian's Wall when they complete their walk, especially if they come from Carlisle across the country and are arriving here on the eastern end of the wall. They'll say the last few miles are just really dull. I think part of that is because they're not actually walking on the wall anymore, and part of it is because of a misunderstanding. And I'm trying to encourage a friend of mine to do a project that he's been talking about doing now for years, and if you guys are interested, hopefully I can help him make it happen. Now, I should say that people aren't walking on the wall, because actually Hadrian's Wall goes in that direction. It goes all the way over there and continues off to the city of Newcastle. I've talked previously about a mile or so up the road about the site of a mile castle just up there, but it essentially just goes past that tower block and continues in that direction. However, the path for Hadrian's Wall is, well, over there by the museum. But to get there, we need to go along this cul-de-sac here, and you'll see why the alignment is out. Because actually, the museum for Hadrian, the end of Hadrian's Wall, for Wallsend, for Segedunum Roman Fort, is on one side of a main road just over there. It's one of the main roads that goes towards Newcastle from essentially from North Shields, and it bisects the original Roman fort. So what we have is Hadrian's Wall coming from over there, where the reconstruction is, just beyond those cars there, past here, some I think a grain oven and some other Roman remains, and then it continues along in this direction and connects to the fort here. Now, the fort isn't above ground here, but it is marked out with paving slabs, and I've talked about this in a previous video as well, actually. I think it's really quite a clever way of making sure that we know where the fort is. That's one of the towers there. We can see some of the drainage markings there for the middle between barrack blocks here, and then the fort continues over there. Let's pop over there, shall we? So here we are at the end point of walking from one end of the country to the other, or one side to the other, 84 miles thereabouts. And people get to take a photo here, a selfie. I walked Hadrian's Wall. And this is called the Hadrian Way. This is a pathway and a cycle route that is signposted just up here by the museum. Incidentally, up there it says, "Where Rome's great frontier begins," is designed to be a viewing platform that looks something like a Roman helmet. Maybe a gladiator's helmet, possibly? Anyway, yeah, so Hadrian's Way. It's a great idea, and this is where you come to the end of your walk. On the grounds of Segedunum Roman Museum, with the prospect of a gift shop and maybe a lovely coffee if the cafe is open when you're here. But it's this last section down here that people seem to think is the most boring part of the whole walk. And I think it's because they think what they're looking at is just an industrial wasteland. Now, when I first moved here, just down there was an office block for the old Swan Hunter shipyard. In fact, you can see the old shipyard there. Some massive achievements in shipbuilding were made here on the banks of the Tyne. And you can see across the way, South Shields, south bank of the Tyne, they actually still work on ships there with their cranes. There used to be a massive crane here as well, actually. It was like a signpost. You knew you were home when you saw the cranes of Wallsend, but it has all been torn down. And what I found really interesting when I first moved here was this relationship here. This literally went underneath the office block, this sort of ditch in the ground, and it comes along here. You can see some stones on the pathway which actually connect up to this. This is actually the end of Hadrian's Wall, just here, because it goes through the fort across the road, comes out on this sort of southeast corner, and then it went down to the river over there, and the river was much closer. I think it's moved or been reclaimed over time and jutted out into the river. So yeah, this is one small part that makes it more interesting than you might think. But if we head along, we can see again more, I think, interesting industrial archaeology. This is telling the story of an area in decline, much like my home in North Wales, actually. Post-Victorian, post-Edwardian, post-imperial power, and questions as to what on earth we should do with it. Miniature rant here. There was going to be a European Union funded project here to turn it into like a Riviera, water sports and shopping, but for some reason that didn't happen. Wonder why. Here we have a reconstructed version of a Roman bathhouse, again on the grounds of the museum, but actually this is an echo of what we're about to see, actually just off the Hadrian Way. So this is a Hadrian Way, also known as the Hadrian cycle path locally. People, as well as you just saw, people cycle past quite often, and I believe it used to be a railway. It was an industrial part of the rail network, allowing coal to go onto ships and other materials to come off. I understand ships as well. I might be wrong about disembarking, but certainly embarking materials here. Not far from here, in fact just over there, there was the discovery a few years ago now of some wooden train tracks, rail tracks, some of the earliest and oldest ever found, because this is a part of the world where people like Stevenson and others were inventing trains. Anyway, so that's the route there, and unfortunately on these wagon way tracks there is a lot of vandalism. This is part of the legacy of living in that post-industrial part of the world. Is, yeah, you do sometimes get this happening. But yeah, so this is part of the wagon ways. Now if we leave the path, the cycleway down there, and we go down here, there's a small sign, a little bit vandalised, for the Roman baths. And I had been living here for an embarrassing amount of time before I realised where the baths were. When I first moved here, there was an excavation underway to uncover them, and I had been led to believe through vague directions that it was way up back there by an old pub, but no, actually here we are. Again, looks very post-industrial. I believe there was a pub that used to be over there for workers, but here we have the bathhouse. So you can see the raised little tile blocks for having underfloor heating. There would have been a cold plunge pool. There would have been a probably over there a fire that was being stoked constantly to keep the bathhouse warm. And this area here by the river was helping the people of Segedunum stay clean and have their social life intact. It's quite far down on the river, riverbank that is. It's quite deep, and that's because of years of terraforming and reforming this landscape for the purposes of industry. And here we are, Wall Quest, the discovery of the long-lost Roman baths at Wallsend. After months of detective work on old maps and records, volunteers of the Community Archaeology Project, WallQuest, pinpointed this site as being close to the original Roman baths. Trenches dug by WallQuest volunteers. Yeah, I remember that, yeah, WallQuest 2014. Thanks to the work of local people, the baths of the Roman fort at Wallsend had been rediscovered on this site exactly 200 years after they were first described by John Hodgson. There he is. This was the site of the Ship Inn, there you go, locally known as the Ship in the Hole. And this is why I was confused, is that someone said it was on the site of an old pub, as I say, over there, but actually it was on the site of an old pub that was here. The ground had risen because of coal falling from the wagonway, and because the earth and clay was dumped here when the Swan Hunter shipyard was enlarged around 1900, before the pub was built. And so here we are. We started here, just in front of the wall. We walked across here to where the wall, where the Roman fort is not visible above ground. We crossed the road. We went past the Roman fort here, where the museum is, and that's where it is visible above ground. This is where the wall goes towards the river. So we've walked along here, and now we're at the bathhouse. So this is one of the reasons I think why people think this section is boring, is that this isn't actually on the route of the Hadrian wall walk or the cycle path. But also I think it's because what they think they're seeing is just modern. You know, it's all just sort of, well, you know, we can go anywhere and see this sort of stuff. But actually, this is a landscape filled with literal pioneers of engineering, railways, electrification, and actually my friend Rob of Redbeard Tours often, in fact every single time we drive past a building just over there, which served as the offices for the Neptune shipyard, which was just beyond that fence, I believe. So that was the Neptune shipyard, this was Swan Hunter. Every time we drive past it, he mentions, you know, I love this building, I love this landscape, I love the fact that next door to this there was a power generating factory, one of the first in the world. You know, I love the fact that this part of the country specifically was one of the first places to have electric lighting, and so on and so forth. And so I really want him to do the project that he's been threatening to do for a while now, and actually talk about this landscape, talk about the route that people walk when they're coming from Newcastle through to Wallsend. What do you think? Do you want to hear all about it? As I say, I definitely do. Comment below, let me know, and I'll try and encourage him to, well, not just pull his own finger out, but I'll give him a hand. I'll maybe help him film it as well. Anyway, let's head back to where we started. So here we are, back where we started. You can see the Segdunum Roman Museum viewing platform just over there. And yeah, it's time for me to head home and have hopefully a somewhat still warm breakfast sandwich. Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you want to see that video by Rob on the boring section of the walk at this end of Hadrian's Wall, let me know, comment below, I'll let him know, and hopefully together we can make it happen. But anyway, you've seen a little bit of this area today, so I hope this has been interesting. Until next time, do take care. Bye bye.